This one is a little bit hilarious to me. Was really disgusted by this one. First birthday was today, and my daughter didn't really want to eat her smash cake, but loves to offer food to other people. So she digs into the icing and holds up a handful to give me. I took a small piece from her and ate it. After barely speaking all night, my mother-in-law comes around the table and puts my baby's entire hand in her mouth in a joking manner. Then does it 2 more times and gets her own face covered in cake and icing. Probably more than my baby. I kept giving my husband the look to do something about his mom. He just laughed at it and said later that the baby enjoyed it. When he did nothing, I whisked her off to the bathroom immediately for a bath before her hands went anywhere near her mouth. Like, yeah, she did enjoy it, but she's a baby and thinks a lot of unsanitary stuff is funny. I'm just really annoyed with my husband, thinking that some of his mother's weird or gross behaviors are acceptable. In most ways, she's a very nice person, but he coddles his mom way too much, like she's going to mentally break if he says anything negative to her. And he wonders why I don't bring the kids to visit his mom more. Now, here we're also going to have the question of, is this the end of the world? And I get, people have very different hygiene standards, and I understand why, especially if she's not your mom, then you're a bit like, this is a bit messed up. I'm not into this. Why is she shoving my child's hand in her mouth? It's a bit gross and disgusting. I think it's fair enough to wash her hands immediately afterwards. Like, I would have done that anyway, even if no one had shoved the hand in their mouth. But fundamentally, I'm also a bit like, the husband didn't care, baby didn't care. The mother-in-law clearly didn't care. They were all just having fun. It was meant to be lighthearted. It was meant to be funny. It was meant to be a joke. Yes, babies do think a lot of unsanitary stuff is funny. My baby likes to shove his hand inside our dog's mouth, and then our dog licks it, and then he laughs his butt off because he thinks that this is hilarious if the dog is licking his hand. And then obviously immediately after the dog is done, we clean his hands so that if he shoves his hands in his mouth afterwards, it's not a problem. It is not a big deal, okay? It's really not. It happens sometimes. Babies get a bit dirty. Babies shove their hands in disgusting places. Another person's mouth, if it was diseased, does not have to be like at least a family member, okay? If it was a stranger, then yes, another person's mouth is pretty disgusting. I would kind of put it lower than my dog because at least I know what my dog had in his mouth, which is usually not great things. But a family member shoving his hand in his mouth, it's weird. It wouldn't occur to me to do in the moment. I can actually kind of imagine my husband deciding to do it. So maybe it would occur to my husband to do it because he would think it's funny. But fundamentally, it's kind of like, this is a super minor situation. And you can see, like, there are all these hints here for why OP is totally over the top. The first one is she kept giving her husband the look to do something about his mom, and he obviously didn't react. So instead of saying, honestly, if someone was really doing something with my child that really annoyed me, then I would just go in and take my kid out of that situation. Like, I would not need my husband to reprimand his mom if she did something that I don't like, even especially if it's something minor like this, where it's like, yeah, I just need to wash my kid's hands, and then it's not a big deal. And then the rest of it, she says, in most ways, she's a very nice person, but he coddles his mom way too much, like she's going to mentally break if he says anything negative to her. And he wonders why I don't bring the kids to visit his mom more. And what that says to me is that actually the mother-in-law is quite normal. Like, she's a normal person. She describes her as a nice person. And then she says, yeah, but the husband doesn't tell his mom off more. I would say that unless the mother does something that's actually a problem, then he doesn't need to get on her case. And I really don't think that this type of thing you need to make a big deal out of. Again, I would kind of get it if the mother-in-law smoked, if she had some kind of illness, some kind of disease, some kind of virus, some kind of reason for you to go, you're exposing myself to something actually harmful here. But this kind of play fighting, like, it's just, come on. Strange to me, yes. I wouldn't do it, fine. But I don't need to be quite so angry by it. Now, again, I'm the only person with this opinion. A lot of people here are like, ew. This is disgusting and creepy. I would have yelled at her in the moment and told her to back off. I wouldn't wait for the husband to step in. But since the past is the past, tell him that what she did was out of line. If something similar happens again, either he stops her or you will. Just because he coddles her doesn't mean you have to. I don't think it's disgusting and creepy. I think these are very strong words that you're using for a very minor situation that really doesn't matter. I don't think wiping icing on your face from a baby's hand is I just don't think it's a big deal. I think if you take a 1-year-old and you put them in one of those sand pits and they play in sand, and then they get a bit of water, they make it into mud, they shove the mud in their face, it's disgusting, sure, but it's a normal part of being a child and exploring the world and finding out what's going on. Shoving your hand in food is also just part of the experience of growing up. And sometimes adults do participate in that, and it makes kids really excited because then someone is kind of at their level and playing with them, and that's also fun. And you can think about it on that level instead of this, she touched her mouth, like, wow, mother-in-law really just didn't think. Has she done things like this before? I would probably just talk to her about it after the party so it doesn't seem too threatening. She probably thought that she was being funny and didn't realize how disgusting that was. And yeah, I imagine that she did just think it was funny because she was just playing with the kid, and she didn't think about it any more than that. Again, if you feel like telling her, look, I was just a bit grossed out by that, I'm not comfortable with my kid having her hand in your mouth, then I guess you could say that. But why would you pick a fight over something so small? Like, that's just so unnecessary. And then OP goes on this whole long explanation about the amount of conflict between both grandparents, like both sets of grandparents, who apparently really hate each other. And so that's why she didn't want to step in. And this is a really interesting comment, kind of unrelated to this particular case, but she says, I don't mean this harshly, but you need to be more firm with both your mother-in-law and your own family. Things turn into an argument because you allow it. You're de-escalating situations all the time because you've allowed your family and the in-laws to be comfortable being disrespectful and rude towards each other. If people act up, you tell them this is not the time or place and kick them out if they don't listen. And when you get unsolicited advice from either side, my parenting decisions are not up for discussion. Sounds like your family and in-laws need to be more mature and act like adults. They don't need to like each other, but they need to be civil if they want to be involved in your baby's life. And OP got pretty defensive over this. Fundamentally, I think OP is just does not have the confidence needed to be able to stand up for her kid in the way that she thinks is necessary. And I actually feel that this type of thread is a little bit the result of that. So it's because she's frustrated at herself for not responding properly in the moment that she then feels the need to get validation from other people on the internet saying, yeah, well, aren't I right? Wasn't this completely over the top and completely disgusting? Even though her husband disagrees with her, obviously, or he would have said or done something. So I think a really over the top reaction, and having this fallout from it where you're really thinking about your role as a parent and to what extent should you step in when in-laws do something that you don't like. It's fair enough as a thought, and you should probably have that, and you should understand where your boundaries are, but does it need to be over one of those really minor situations that just happen in the moment and are then over a second later and then everyone moves on with their lives? Like, I don't think that is necessarily the case. Here's a really good comment. She says, the sooner you accept your husband is his own person and will not automatically think and feel the same as you, the better off your marriage will be. Subtlety doesn't work when someone isn't on the same page as you. He won't view his mom as germy and disgusting because she's his mom. He won't think like you. So if you have an issue with something, you need to speak up out of respect for the relationship with all parties. And that's a fundamentally true statement. Like, honestly, when women do this thing where they expect their husbands to react, it reminds me so much of the Will Smith slap when he slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. This moment when the wife gets really angry about something and she looks over to her husband and she gives him the glare, and then he has to do exactly what she wants him to do because he's like a dog that just follows orders. That's not a great dynamic for a marriage. And if you find yourself falling down into that, then you should probably stop. So no, this one is not the end of the world. You do not need to treat it. You don't need to freak out to this extent. Yes, you might find it disgusting and gross. It's okay. You just wash your kids' hands and then you move on with your life, and it is not a problem. And in general, if the dynamics of your relationship with your in-laws and the dynamics of your relationship with your husband are things that you're unhappy about, then that is the part that you should deal with, and that is the thing that you should be trying to change.